So we are in the start of a new year, and you know what that means. New year, new you, new resolutions, and lots going on. But as we are continuing to progress throughout the year, you're probably going, okay, what's happening here? So joining me on the couch today, and you've seen her many, many times, is the career and business success coach, Kim Smith. Kim, how are you?
I'm great. So glad to be here again, and Happy New Year, even though it's the end of January, but this topic is going to be very timely.
It's so true. I figure, we're sitting here on the couch, and Happy New Year. I'm still in the new year for at least the next 3 months.
Of course.
Well, love having another Kim on the couch with me today. So let's talk a little bit about New Year's resolutions, right? We're at the end of January, but people tend to set aggressive and very lofty and optimistic goals, and then, as they keep progressing forward, talk to me about why people set New Year's and resolutions.
Well, we have so much optimism at the beginning of the year. It's sort of a time to reset and reframe and think about maybe the things that didn't go well last year. So we just sort of sometimes arbitrarily throw things out there and say like, all right, I'm going to just, I'm going to work on this or work on that. So it's very normal to do that. But what often happens is that, by the end of January, 90% of resolutions basically fail. People aren't working on them anymore, and really here to talk about like why that happens.
It's so true. And, I think for me personally, I had a couple of goals that I set in January, and now I'm going, time's slipping away.
Okay.
So why do goals and people fail at reaching and staying on track with their resolutions?
Right. Well, and that is the crux, and the big question is, why? And a lot of times it's just because maybe they're arbitrary, but often we aren't necessarily tying that goal to our purpose and our why and what's important to us, and really asking like, why am I doing this? Is it because there's some outside pressure for me to do it, or is it something that really is something that I'm very attached to and that I need to do and want to do, not what I need to do? So that's like one of the big ones. One of the next ones is just basically not having a plan in place, like figuring out like how to get from point A to Z, and all the steps in between. So it's really easy to get stuck on that, like it's a huge goal, how do I get started? And that's very, very common. And another one is just not really holding yourself accountable and having maybe an accountability partner. And then a big final one is, and it's not final, but one of the big ones is, what are our fears around success and our limiting beliefs? Is there something that might be holding us back from trying or even trying to move forward with a new goal?
All of those things. Well, outside pressure.
Yeah.
Too big of a goal. How do you get there? What do you do? Holding yourself accountable. Those are all very, very important things. So let's talk a little bit about creating a timeline. How do you do that? How do you even begin to think about it? And what's the structure?
Right. Well, a timeline is really, it could be driven by an outside force, like perhaps you need to get a new job because you're being pushed out somewhere, you're seeing the writing on the wall, you're ready to do something. Or it could be that, within a certain time frame, you'd like to make a change and transition in your career or in your life, whatever that is. But I think it's really important to put something on a calendar and then work back from there and then have those baby steps. Because if you don't start mapping out some of those baby steps, you're not going to ever reach that end goal. So, making sure that you put something in the calendar for maybe it's every day or maybe it's every week, but you check in and you're really kind of measuring where you are each time.
That's so true. A specific example, and I've talked about this previously, I used to dance for a professional team, and I wrote the audition date all over a calendar, all over my bathroom mirror. So I love that, setting a goal and then working your way backwards.
Right.
It's really important.
And then what were your steps in between? Just curiosity. Out of curiosity.
Without getting into too much detail, there were some physical aspects of it. So certain goals from that perspective, I wanted to be at this place with my physicality. I wanted to have this part of my dance, and then hitting those monthly timelines and kind of just holding myself to the fire and saying, what's more important, the right now moment or the long term? And it took some discipline and accountability for sure.
Discipline is a really good term too. It's like, what am I going to do to hold myself to doing this? And sometimes it's that fear of that end goal. Like you've got this deadline, you've got that, that tryout or whatever it was, and you had to have that done for then. And then I think that's important to make sure that you have something that you're working towards and there's a reason behind it.
So let's talk about the goals and working towards them. How do you figure out what is a realistic goal for yourself personally?
Yeah, and realistic is that question, and it's sometimes hard. So what I like to tell people is to be sure that you know what you can manage, what is realistic. So if a goal is too easy, you're probably not going to do it. But if it's way too hard and you're asking yourself to do way too many things in your already busy schedule, you might be like, oh, I'm just going to blow it off, and so therefore forget it in like 2 weeks, right? So come up with something that's realistic and be kind to yourself. Give yourself permission to make changes as you need to, but still hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so you mentioned the changes and figuring out what those realistic goals are. So you set a goal, you're starting to work towards it, you're making some changes here and there, and you're going, well, wait a minute, I don't know if this is what I want anymore. So how do you tweak, the goals or the resolutions or whatever you're setting to basically like accelerate your personal goals?
Right.
Yeah.
And there's been so many times when I've been working with people and they're like, well, wait, I've done all this work and suddenly I see it differently and I want to go a different direction. And so, it's about taking stock in where you are and why are you changing it? Is it because you really want to, or is it because you're now in fear and you maybe don't want to achieve that goal anymore because something, your limiting belief is getting in the way? So it's a matter of, kind of deciding where you are with that.
Yeah, I think I love taking that and simplifying things. So, how do you simplify, like look at it from an easier perspective and saying, okay, I have all of these goals. This is what I want to do. Let's break it down. So like you mentioned, going from A to Z, how do you go from A to B, B to C, et cetera? And how do you simplify that?
And I think it's really about figuring out what are those steps and what are those realistic steps and what's it going to take. And sometimes it takes some research. You may have to reach out to people that have done it in the past, or if you're looking to change a career, what are those things that you need in order to move into that? Is it that you need to make sure you have enough, in your bank account so that you can like hold on for a while? What is that going to look like? Do you need some additional training? Do you need to network? What does your resume look like, for example? Like all of these things, map those out and then work on them, every week and prioritize, right? Some things are going to take longer than others.
That's true. Well, Kim, I wish I had met you when I had all of those goals back in the day. So like, what is working with a career and business success coach? Like, what does that mean? How do I work with you? How do you find a coach that fits what you're looking for?
Yeah. Well, I think, there's a lot of coaches out there and, it has to be a nice personality fit, I think, for both of you. But really, coach is here to help you to determine, if you have a goal or something you're wanting to change. And, a lot of times I'm working with people through transitions and changes, and I'll identify, we'll say, like, what is your goal and how does that relate to your purpose and your why, like I said initially. And then, what is the plan? How are we going to put this together? So you're not having to figure it out in your head by yourself. I'm going to be asking the questions like, what is it going to take? Where do we need to go? I'll be giving some insight, to your process and what I think, you should do, but I'm also going to really help guide you and partner with you to reach those goals. And, a couple of the really big things that a coach does is hold you accountable, for meeting weekly or every other week or even once a month. I'm going to say, like, let's determine what are the things that we're going to work on. And the next time we get together, hopefully you'll have those done. And if not, we'll say, like, well, why? What happened? This isn't an opportunity to make you feel bad about something. It's just to say, well, what got in the way and how can we avoid that pitfall in the future? And then finally, really looking at limiting beliefs, because as much as we like to think we know what our limiting beliefs are, I go through a pretty in-depth process to figure out what those are, to see, what those small voices are in your head that are, maybe holding you back from success or holding you back from trying harder. What are those self-doubts? What are those things that might, get in the way? So
I love that. So it sounds like you help people break through their barriers, their personal barriers.
Exactly.
And then on the flip side, you're not coming down on them like a boss would in a job,
Right.
but more so in let's talk about it and let's work through it and set some more goals. I love what you do. That's so great.
Yeah.
So Kim, if we wanted to hire you, if I wanted to personally hire you, where do I go for more information and how do I keep up with what you're doing?
Well, I'm here local in the Vail Valley, and you can reach me at kim@adventuresandcoaching.com or just go to my website, adventuresandcoaching.com, and reach out to me. I offer a free or complimentary first session if you're interested, just to find out a little bit more about how we would work together. So yeah, please reach
Great.
out.
Just make sure it's a good personal fit. And,
Yes.
and all of the fun things. Well, I love that. Kim, you were wonderful. It's great to
Thank
be
you.
officially on the couch with you. You know,
Thanks,
I've
Kim.
watched all of your previous sessions, so I love that I'm here.
Awesome.
And again, we appreciate all that you're doing. And I hope that a lot of people reach out, because January is over, but that means the year is still in full swing.
Right, and we still have opportunities at any time to make changes.
It's absolutely true. Now, stay tuned. We've got a bit more, and we'll be right back after this.